What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for June 21st, 2024. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Typically, the SmackDown audio reviews do go up on Saturdays. We had none last week due to the fact there was a pay-per-view. And thankfully, these Saturday afternoon shows, which I do thoroughly enjoy, are done for right now because of the fact that they've had Saturday afternoon pay-per-views for the past month or two. We haven't been able to do SmackDown audio reviews on pay-per-view weekends. Now, we do have Money in the Bank coming up in 2 weeks, but that's not a Saturday afternoon show. That's a Saturday night show. So we should still be able to do a SmackDown audio review that weekend. I was just busy yesterday, so I couldn't do this yesterday, and that's why my voice is shot as well. But I couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk about this show. I thought this was an excellent edition of SmackDown overall, between the Money in the Bank qualifiers, the Drew McIntyre CM Punk angle, the furthering of the feud between LA Knight and Logan Paul, and last but certainly not least, the arrival of Jacob fucking Fatu, finally on WWE television. Anyone who has been watching his work for really any extended period of time has been waiting for this for a very long time. I know it was reported he signed with WWE over WrestleMania weekend, so we've really been waiting since then for the introduction of Jacob Fatu in WWE TV. That was almost 3 months ago. But I'm talking for anyone who's been aware of his work for the past 2, 3, 5, 6 years. He was in MLW previously as one of the longest, if not the longest reigning MLW World Heavyweight Champion of all time. Dominant run over there. And for the longest time, it looked like WWE just wasn't interested. He does have a record. He did spend some time in jail many years ago. And it seemed like that was probably the reason why they wouldn't pick him up. For whatever reason, that mindset changed. He is now in WWE, right where he belongs in the at the focal point, the crux of this bloodline storyline. And they might be out there calling Solo Sikoa the tribal chief. He's been running the bloodline in Roman Reigns' absence. Jacob Fatu is the real true crown jewel of that group. This man is amazing. And if you were not aware of him before Friday, you fucking should be now. That guy means business. This guy single-handedly took out Cody Rhodes, the undisputed WWE Universal, or just the WWE Champion, whatever, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens all on his own to end the show on Friday. That is how dominant this man is going to be and how much of an impact he will have, not only on this bloodline storyline, but WWE on the whole. He is a great asset to have on that WWE roster. So let's start back at the beginning here. CM Punk arriving in his hometown of Chicago. A very electric atmosphere, by the way. All night long in Chicago was this crowd. They were great all night long. But Punk was not on Raw. He said on the Clash of the Castle post-show presser last weekend, that he had told WWE, in storyline, I will not be at Raw. I'm going to the doctors to hopefully get good news and get cleared. And I'll inform you of that good news the following Friday on SmackDown in Chicago. So as soon as you knew that Punk was going to be on this show, in Chicago, his hometown, that McIntyre just had to return the favor, with McIntyre being embarrassed by Punk in his own home country, just last week in a Clash of the Castle, with Punk costing him the World Heavyweight Championship. McIntyre had to return the favor here, and he did. Not in this segment, but he did a little bit later on in the show, which we'll get to later on. But Punk was out there addressing the audience, really nothing out of the ordinary about his promo, pretty basic stuff, before he was interrupted and confronted by one Paul Heyman. Now, I know Paul acknowledged Punk in the front row at his Hall of Fame ceremony a few months ago, but on WWE TV, beyond the Hall of Fame, we have not seen these two interact on WWE television in well over a decade. We're going all the way back to late 2013, and they were a money pairing for as short-lived as it was in WWE. They weren't even together for a full year as a heel pairing on television. It was only from September of 2012 through, I think, June, almost exactly a year ago this past week. Heyman was still with Punk, ordered Brock to take out Punk, and then Heyman officially turned on Punk in Money in the Bank a couple of weeks later. But they were only together for about 8-9 months, 9-10 months, and they feuded from that point forward for a number of weeks or for a number of months, and it was entertaining. But yeah, getting those two back in the same ring together was great. And Heyman even proclaiming his allegiance to Roman Reigns made me think that during the segment that at some point down the road, and I was already thinking this a while ago, because I was thinking before Punk got hurt, maybe not before Mania 40, but at some point he would turn heel, maybe win the World Heavyweight Championship, turn on Rollins, and a babyface Rollins, and a heel Rollins too, versus a babyface Punk is also very intriguing. But the idea of a heel CM Punk versus babyface Rollins is great. Even more than that, a heel CM Punk versus a babyface Roman Reigns. And I think at some point we got to get that. I think a babyface Punk and a heel Roman would work, but it seems to me when Roman comes back, he will be a babyface. Maybe not right away, but at some point the money is in a babyface Roman Reigns, which I never thought I would say 10 years ago, but here we are now. And they've completely flipped the script with Roman, and people are chanting, "We want Roman." They were chanting that in the SmackDown after WrestleMania. He hadn't even gone a full fucking week, and people already started chanting, "We want Roman." So I think that at some point, that's going to be a money feud. They have to do that feud with Heyman in the middle of, does he stick with Roman or does he go with Punk? And I think he goes back with Punk. And you have Roman feuding with a heel Heyman and Punk pairing. I think that would be fucking money, personally. So anyway, the Bloodline ultimately interrupts Punk and Heyman. Heyman was like, "Oh, save yourself. The Bloodline's coming for you, blah, blah, blah." Out comes Solo and Tama Tonga Loa, the Bloodline. Punk goes off from the Bloodline. Before they could attack him, out comes Cody Rhodes to make the save. So we are not getting a Punk and Cody tag team match. I know with what we saw later on, we might be getting an 8-man tag team match at Money in the Bank or a 6-man or whatever. With the entire Bloodline, 4 new members now, Solo, Fatu, and the Tongans, G.O.D., versus Cody, Orton, and Owens, and a mystery partner. That will not be CM Punk. I think Punk's first match back will be and should be at SummerSlam. I don't even know if he's cleared yet. I don't think he is. I know that was the whole hook coming into the show. Is he cleared? Is he not cleared? They're keeping us waiting to find out. I don't think he's going to be at Money in the Bank, especially after the attack he endured on this show by Drew McIntyre. It would make little sense for him to then go team with these other 3 baby faces in his first match back when he really should want to get his hands on Drew McIntyre. I got to be clear there. But I thought this was good stuff, though. Back to Drew and Punk a little bit later on. They did set the stage here with Cody challenging Solo to a one-on-one match later on in the show. I didn't think we would actually get it. We really didn't. It was short-lived. It was a DQ finish. I didn't think they would actually even go through with the match. They did, but they did announce it here at the beginning of the show. Our first Money in the Bank qualifier was a qualifier for the women on the show. Chelsea Green battling and beating Michin and Bianca Belair in a triple threat match to punch her ticket to Money in the Bank in Toronto. First of all, she's Canadian, so the fact that she'll be in Canada on their first Canadian pay-per-view in quite a while, probably since, actually, I know for a fact, since Elimination Chamber last year in Montreal. That was in Toronto. I think they have not had a pay-per-view in Toronto since SummerSlam 5 years ago, to my knowledge. But they'll be back in Toronto for Money in the Bank in a couple of weeks. Chelsea Green will be in that match. I thought this was a well-worked triple threat. Good stuff here. Good showings from all 3 women. Chelsea Green is who I wanted to advance, and I'm glad she did. I enjoy Michin. She's kind of like fodder right now in NXT and on the main roster. She's been getting more television time, which is great. She was never going to qualify. Bianca was the odds-on favorite because it's Bianca Belair, former WWE Women's Champion, Raw Women's Champion, Women's World Champion, whatever. Not Women's World Champion, but SmackDown Women's Champion. You know what I mean. So she's held all these championships. She and Jade just lost the WWE Women's Tag Team titles at Clash of the Castle. You would think this is their opportunity to put her back in the singles ranks. And thankfully they did not do that. Chelsea Green belongs in that match. She is very entertaining. I could see her even being a dark horse to win the briefcase. My money is still on Tiffany Stratton, who will be involved in a qualifier next week. But if it's not Tiffany, Chelsea Green is not a bad pick. I don't know if she would cash in successfully at some point, but her, even with the briefcase, could be very entertaining. So she did win here. She pinned Michin. Bianca was not pinned. Bianca, again, coming off her loss of the WWE Women's Tag Team titles just last weekend, might be having some frustration. So Jade will have a qualifier next week. I don't think she wins that, like I said earlier. I think Tiffany wins that. I think Bianca and Jade do have their sights set on regaining the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. I don't think they really necessarily need to, just because those belts mean nothing and they can move on. But they were not pinned at Clash of the Castle, so they could very well go back for the belts and get those belts back in that matchup at some point against Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. When that would be, could very well be at Money in the Bank. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I thought this was the right outcome to a good match. Before we could get to the next match, segment, whatever, we heard from DIY and Waller in theory. It might have just been Waller backstage here on SmackDown. But that wasn't really the focal point. The, whatever you would call it, the garage door, or whatever they want to call it, opened. and you see McIntyre standing over a bloodied Punk. A bloodied Punk on the ground, McIntyre just standing over him, picking him up over his shoulder, on his shoulders as if he was going to do a GTS. Brings him on into the arena, on the stage, and just dumps him. And before he could do any more damage, you have the agents come out, Nick Aldis and all those folks come out to stop McIntyre from doing further damage to Punk. And they kind of got in each other's face, did Aldis and McIntyre. This was really, really well done. Now remember, McIntyre quit in storyline on Monday's Raw. So he was right back 4 days later, as you would expect, as we thought he would be. And I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they did this. They didn't have to have McIntyre. We didn't have to see the beatdown. Because again, Punk may not be clear to the point where he can take that sort of abuse. So they did the angle without us seeing it, which I thought was cool. And the bloodied face, and they've been doing a lot more blood lately, which is cool. They don't need to do it on every single show. They did it at Money in the Bank, or not, Clash of the Castle, rather. They did it here. They don't need to do it every single week, but when they do it, it's effective. And I thought this was effective. This was very well done. It set the stage for a big match between the two at SummerSlam, which I'm sure will be made official at some point. And they can go one-on-one on that show. And that should be McIntyre's, or rather Punk's first match back. So I thought this was really, really well done. Our second men's Money in the Bank qualifier match of the night, Carmelo Hayes beating Randy Orton and Tama Tonga to qualify. A very, very good match here. I thought these guys worked very well together. The other men's triple threat was better, but this was still fun for what it was. Orton has had separate singles matches with Carmelo and Tama Tonga in recent weeks on SmackDown, so it was cool to see him working well with these two. And again, they went with the right outcome here. Tama Tonga and Orton should have canceled each other out. They did. Tonga Loa getting involved, costing Orton the win. Orton did get rolled up by Carmelo, and Carmelo picked up the win. Now, I don't think Carmelo is winning the men's Money in the Bank briefcase, but he's a great addition to that matchup. He hasn't really done a whole lot on the main roster, so I think having him in the matchup was perfect. Or at least having him in Money in the Bank is a very smart call. So I like the match, like the outcome. LA Knight out next to call out Logan Paul after he appeared in his friggin' pool last week. Santos Escobar interrupting him because he did just kind of like throw it out here in the promo that next week he'll have a chance to qualify for Money in the Bank by being in a triple threat with Logan Paul and Santos. Now, we're getting LA Knight and Logan Paul before we ever get the one-on-one match. We're getting them next week in a triple threat. Now, could they have LA Knight win and then Logan Paul gets himself involved in Money in the Bank and he costs them the briefcase, or vice versa? Sure. But I feel like the one-on-one match should happen in Money in the Bank. You can save the rematch for SummerSlam, and that's where LA Knight beats him for the belt. If they want to have him beat him for the belt in Money in the Bank, you'll get no complaints out of me. But I think it would be better saved for SummerSlam a couple of weeks later, in my personal opinion. But this was fine, though, so Escobar comes out, interrupts him, pretty basic exchange. LA Knight lays him out with the BFT before LA Knight gets laid out from behind by Logan Paul, who never really shows up for work. So I can't blame LA Knight for not having eyes in the back of his head. But Logan Paul getting the better of LA Knight here before their triple threat match next week on SmackDown in MSG. Fine segment here, furthering the feud between Knight and Paul. And like I mentioned, just if Knight or Paul were to win that match next week, it to me just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. It would just be a waste. Escobar also is not winning the briefcase, but I feel like he'd be a better addition to that match than either of those men. Now, Logan Paul and LA Knight are bigger stars than Santos Escobar, obviously. But you just know that LA Knight and Logan Paul are not winning the briefcase. You know Santos Escobar probably isn't winning either, but I would say he probably has a better chance than LA Knight or Logan Paul. So I think that's what happens next week. The other men's qualifier here, Andrade laying out Grayson Waller, or not laying out, but beating Grayson Waller and Kevin Owens. I was looking at my previous paragraph. This was another triple threat match in the men's Money in the Bank qualifying ladder match, whatever. Another really, really good triple threat. I thought this was the best of the bunch. The three guys working really well together. Andrade picking up the win. Kevin Owens was laid out beforehand by the Bloodline, so that pretty much confirmed he was not winning this match. Waller in Money in the Bank is intriguing. He had at least one ladder match appearance in NXT. I think he would thrive in that environment. But he's doing the whole Austin Theory storyline right now, DIY and whatnot. He is one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions. He's not winning Money in the Bank. I don't think he should be in Money in the Bank. Andrade isn't really doing much of anything right now. He has been kind of lost in the shuffle on SmackDown since being drafted about 2 months ago. Him being in the Money in the Bank match makes more sense. Again, like Escobar, like Carmelo, he will not win. But, wait, is it Yeah, Escobar's going to be qualifying next week. I'm thinking, did we have 3 qualifiers in the show? But no, I just said that we're getting the 3rd qualifier next week. And I'm already assuming Escobar is advancing, which isn't set in stone yet. But again, none of these men, I think it's pretty much confirmed from SmackDown, are not winning the men's briefcase. But they're all quality competitors, and I think it's going to be an awesome match. So another really good match here. Andrade winning was the right call. And just like that, we get to the main event, Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa at non-title action. The match did not last long. I don't think it needed to last long. I know Meltzer had said earlier in the week, I don't know if he was speculating or just outright reporting, that the SummerSlam match is Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa. But honestly, now they got to rethink that. Or maybe not, because now that Jacob Fatu is here, and by the way, Cody, Owens, Orton, getting the better of Solo seemingly before Fatu shows up from behind, lays them all out, including a splash off the top turnbuckle to Cody through the commentary table. That was fucking awesome. So like I said, should they reconsider? Here's my argument here. They should reconsider in that Jacob Fatu is far, 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 far better than Solo Sikoa. I like Solo Sikoa a lot, but I think Jacob Fatu is more of a leader, more of a quote-unquote tribal chief than Solo Sikoa is. Jacob is just great. He has the aura about him. He's great in the ring, lost a lot of fucking weight. He looks like the best shape I've ever seen him in personally. Good talker. He's perfect for that role as the leader of the group. They want to have him follow Solo, that's fine. I thought for a moment there they might have him join up with the Usos, but Jimmy's not back yet. Jay's still doing his thing on Raw. That might not be anytime soon. I don't want them to hold off Jacob Fatu for fucking 6 to 8 months. He really should have debuted, on the sooner side, and he has. It's been 3 months, but I don't want them to wait 6 to 9 months to bring in Jacob Fatu. Otherwise, why sign him when you did over WrestleMania weekend? But yeah, so you could do Cody and Solo at SummerSlam, which is fine because it guarantees a Cody win. The match will not be anything amazing. They had a pretty good match on Raw about a year ago, right before WrestleMania. But if you want to revisit that, a clean win for Cody, that's fine. Solo does not feel like a threat. Jacob Fatu would be more of a threat. Now, why I'm fine with them not doing that match is that if Fatu's debuting here, you might not want to have him lose clean, decisively, or just lose at all come SummerSlam in 5 to 6 weeks. They might not want to do that. So, dragging it out and saving that match for another time down the road, whatever it might be, is totally fine by me. I was just surprised that we got this match here, because I thought it would, at least the first encounter since last year, 1-on-1 between these two, would be safe for SummerSlam. They kind of are, because again, we didn't really get much of a match between the two here, but still. Now, the other question turns to, not even looking ahead to SummerSlam, but what do you do at Money in the Bank? I think it was pretty clear all show long that it would be Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa versus Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, I guess it could be, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens at Money in the Bank. 6-man tag team match. You can still do that. I just don't know where Jacob Fatu would factor in. I think it would make more sense to do an 8-man tag team match. The same match I just said, just you involve Jacob Fatu. Who teams with the baby faces? I don't know. Bobby Lashley maybe, but I haven't heard anything about his status, whether he's going to be cleared at some point. I don't know what's going on with Bobby. LA Knight is busy right now. I don't really want to see him get involved with the Bloodline anytime soon anyway, but LA Knight's busy right now with Logan Paul. They don't have a whole lot of options. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do. Solo doesn't even have to really even be in the match. It could just be Jacob Fatu in the Tongans versus Rhodes, Orton, and Owens. Now, I mentioned Roman Reigns a moment ago by accident. Could you have Roman Reigns return at Money in the Bank, confronting the new Bloodline, and set up Roman and Solo for SummerSlam? Fatu and Roman Reigns is really the money match there, but I would save that for a little bit later on down the road. I guess you could do it first, but I would get Roman and Solo out of the way first, and then build the Fatu at Mania or another point. That is possible, because right before Solo went out for his match here, he told Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns is not coming back to SmackDown. He is not coming back. And that could be a telltale sign that Roman Reigns is indeed on his way back, imminently. I thought they might. There was some sort of a sign recently that kind of told me, yeah, Roman ain't coming back anytime soon. And I don't know what it was. Maybe I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I don't remember. But there was something that told me, not like it literally told me, but there was like an indicator that kind of indicated to me that Roman would not be back anytime soon. And I think he could be. I think he could be back in Money in the Bank or the subsequent SmackDown. I'm not sure. But this Bloodline story already is interesting as it is, and I'm still hooked personally. It's about to get a lot more interesting with Roman Reigns getting involved at some point down the road, whether it be in a couple of months, at the end of the year, by SummerSlam. I think adding him to SummerSlam and advertising him ahead of time would be great. Now, they could have him return at SummerSlam itself, as they did 4 years ago in the COVID SummerSlam. That was what kind of kicked off the whole Tribal Chief Roman Reigns character anyway. Very possible. But that's one thing to kind of keep an eye on as well. Overall, a great SmackDown on Friday. I really, really enjoyed this show. I've seen some say that it was the strongest show SmackDown has done all 2024 long so far. And it's honestly hard to argue with that. I've enjoyed SmackDown, really, and Raw as well, on the whole, for the better part of the year. But I think this past week's shows, both Raw and SmackDown, Monday and Friday, was their strongest week in months, if not in a year. Both brands, not just one, both brands having great shows this week, with debuts, Money in the Bank qualifiers, new feuds kicking off, storylines progressing, good promos, stuff like that. So, really enjoyed the show. My SmackDown audio review next week should be up on Saturday. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping anyway. I might even be at SmackDown next Friday. Not confirmed yet, but it's at MSG. I went to the last SmackDown MSG show last summer, and it was great. And next week's SmackDown, they got the men's Money in the Bank qualifier. They have 2 women's Money in the Bank qualifiers. I think it's Blair, Naomi, and someone else. I don't remember who it was. And the other one was Tiffany, Jade, and someone else that's probably losing that match. I forgot who it was. But that match happens next week as well. So both of those matches, the men's qualifier that I mentioned, I don't know what else there was, but the fallout from the Bloodline, the Jacob Fatu debut here, and everything else. So great show this week. We'll be back next week with another audio review of the Blue Brand. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it, and bearing through my kind of broken voice. Hopefully it'll be back to normal. Hopefully by tomorrow, but definitely by next week. It's been an exhausting month, so I appreciate you bearing through my broken voice through this episode here today. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.